16-year-old Kelly Putty was a happy teenager with a bright future. One night, her life was brutally interrupted. She was running errands when she noticed two men parked next to her car.
Something did not look right, but again, I was from a small town. I'd never been trained in any kind of safety or what to look for or what not.
Kelly ignored the feeling and walked to her car.
I got as far as putting my key in the lock, and a man came up behind me with a knife and stuck it to my neck and told me if I said a word, he would kill me. I really, honestly, just did not know what to do. I just froze.
The men forced Kelly into their car and drove off.
I was crying and begging them to let me out, and anytime I would get upset or say anything, they would punch me in the face. Quickly learned I could not speak, I could not do anything except just submit.
The men drove to a secluded area and took turns raping Kelly.
As it is happening, it is kind of so surreal that you can't imagine. It's like you're watching a bad movie. You can't imagine that this is happening to you, and I'm just in shock. I'm numb. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to feel. You just try to get through it.
Kelly's nightmare continued for hours into the night.
The masks were off. I saw their face, and that is when I thought, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it through this.
The men threw Kelly back in the car and drove off. But in a bizarre twist, they stopped to pick up the driver's wife from work. With the wife at the wheel, they drove past the location where Kelly had been abducted. The police were already on the scene.
I just start screaming at the woman to let me out of the car. At this point, I saw my help, and this was my only chance for survival.
The woman stopped the car and let her out. She ran to the police and told them what happened. The men were arrested and later received life sentences for the severity of their crimes. But Kelly was left with deep emotional and physical scars.
After the rape, I started letting go of everything normal to me. Then I will start this new life. I will just pretend like that didn't happen. I think that was my coping mechanism.
But the scars remained. In Kelly's attempt to begin her new life, she started dating a boy named Shane. He was a Christian.
I started going to church with him, but I still was not willing to give my heart to the Lord. I was doing what came natural, and that was relying on Shane and trying to forget the past, bury the past, and that's probably what I would have continued to do had I not gotten sick.
As a result of the rape, Kelly was left with a medical condition that brought on cancer and infertility.
They started me on these chemo treatments. It was supposed to last 8 weeks. Well, during those 8 weeks, Shane started praying, and he got his church praying for me. And when I went back to the doctor after the 8 weeks, the doctor was amazed. He said, there is no scar tissue. There is nothing here that ever shows that you've ever had any problems. This was the same doctor that got up in court and testified that I would never be able to have children due to the complications of the rape.
Kelly knew she had been miraculously healed by God, but Shane remained the center of her new life.
I still relied on him to try to take these emotions away from me, to try to make me feel better. I was still hurting from the rape, but it was so buried, I didn't realize it, but it was all coming out in my neediness towards him.
Before long, Kelly, who was just 17, was pregnant.
I was petrified. When I discovered I was pregnant, I knew that just the fact that I was pregnant was a miracle in itself, because the doctor told me that I would never be able to have children. So abortion was never an option.
Kelly and Shane married 1 month after she graduated from high school. They attended church regularly. While Shane's fervor for God grew, Kelly's heart remained hard. One Sunday morning, when she was 8 months pregnant, she heard a sermon about what Jesus did on the cross for her.
He went on to just say how Jesus went through that sacrifice for us, and he went through that so that we don't have to live with pain, and all of these things he described were what I was feeling. The shame, the fear, low self-esteem, all of these things that I was still trying to fix myself. And I just knew that this was my moment. I went down and he prayed with me, and I accepted the Lord, and And that was just me giving all of my junk to God.
The self-esteem, the low self-esteem, the shame, the guilt. I know he lifted that pain off of you, but what were some of the scriptures that really just spoke truth to your heart?
2 Samuel 13, and that is the story of Tamar, where she was brutally raped by her brother. And it was just God speaking to me, showing me that I was not the only one. You feel so alone and so shamed, like you are the only person that this has ever happened to.
How in the world do you forgive the people who raped you and stole so much from you? What did you do?
I just faithfully prayed about it, and then I started feeling a peace about it. When I thought about the men, I did not have all of the emotions that were tied to them that I'd had previously.
Her act of forgiveness was put to the test one Sunday morning while visiting a church in her hometown. The pastor asked people to come to the front of the church and pray for the person in front of them. As Kelly looked up, she realized the woman in front of her was the mother of one of her attackers.
Instead of her son being the first person that I saw when I looked at her, I was actually looking at her with a mother's heart. I saw the heart of a mother in her, and I saw how broken it was, and I was able to pray for her, and I was able to pray for her son.
Kelly has been set free from the emotional and physical wounds of her past. Kelly and Shane have 5 children, and they just adopted a 6th child from Ethiopia. She is a professional photographer, and in her spare time, she's an artist.
I think the biggest thing I want people to know is that they cannot make it in this world without God. And I thought I could. I thought I was on a road where I was ruthless and nothing would ever happen to me, but life happens, and that is when we realize we really need a Savior. And it does not matter what you've been through. It does not matter how ugly it is, what it looks like on the outside, the shame that comes with it. It can all be lifted off of your shoulders, but only through allowing Jesus to come into your heart. His love and His grace will just overshadow all of the darkness.